most motherfucking greatest podcast in the...
The weed is better, man. I'm trying to tell you something.
Well, I guess that is what? The greatest podcast and the weed is better. And we have another fucking guest. As you can see, the couch is still here, so you know what that fucking means.
New York, baby.
New York fucking vibes.
We showing love to all our New York folk. Because it took us so long to get up this motherfucker.
And on the latest round, also, big shout out to our second white person to ever come on this fucking podcast.
That's a fact.
You know, it's fucking lit out
That
here.
is a fact.
Racial ambiguity is a beautiful thing. Or is it wrong?
And he's been a good man for a while.
Oh, forever. But
Art Basil, you remember the first trip?
for sure. But racial...
Yeah, we gonna bring that up when my man come over.
Yeah, Brad, come to the front. You know the fucking vibe. Woo! I used the wrong word. Hey, Bradley. I'm sorry. I'm smoking.
Social distancing. But yeah, hey, bro. This is Brad. You finally see him in person. You know, the random white guy that me and Charles tweet all the time. And you just
I used the wrong word. It's not racial ambiguity. It is racial unity. Yeah. There we go. Shout out to the second white guy on the High Coast podcast. So, you know, it's beautiful.
It's not that we don't be trying to find them. It's just the fact that we don't know.
Listen, the truth is most white people are awful. Like, that's in this country.
All right, best. All right, see, this is the thing.
He said it not.
When you got a white person like this, you gotta go. You gotta go all in. Like you know how like people be like, I got a black friend. Well, you're the white friend. So
I'll tell you all the messy shit about my white family.
Don't go that far.
I say we're not here for that.
But with that being said,
although I would like to hear that.
Hey man,
in the year 2021, how does it feel to be a white person?
I mean,
let's unpack that.
It's complicated.
I've been doing a lot of unpacking.
So it's complicated because like being white is very real in our society, but it's also a made up thing that's not real. So it's like a weird thing where like obviously yes, in this society it's like built on this crazy racist structure where like it's all about are you white or are you black? And where do you fall in the middle? You know what I mean? How high or low are you on the spectrum? So I get that. I get to be a white guy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, most white people are far more anxious and depressed in this country than non-white people. I found like it's not a very happy culture. Like we talk about this. White American culture, there's not much culture to it. In my opinion.
Okay. So my thing is like you don't represent all white people. We don't represent all black people. He doesn't represent all Islam people.
I studied them.
Muslims. He doesn't represent the religion of Islam. I do not represent the religion of Christianity. But we all kind of fall into these different categories. So as our representative of the whites,
hit me with the white questions. I'm with it.
Why do you think white people don't have a culture?
You know, I think I'll take that.
Thank you, sir.
I think a lot of it has to do with that the majority of white culture has been like, honestly, hating black people for a very long time, and that people don't want to talk about that, but like, even in this country, like, talk about like things like lynchings, or like, even when you watch like, if a black person's in trouble on the news, like, white people get so excited about that shit. Think about how excited white people are to talk about when people get murdered in Chicago. You know, it's like a game to them. And like black trauma has always been one of the most exciting things for white America. And it's
profitable.
Yeah, it's profitable. And it's just like, it's a tragic thing that's just true about this country. And like how to alter it, fuck, I really don't know. Like I wish I had something better. You know, it's really in the water on a very, very deep level.
You have, I think, a very like unique, I guess, relationship with all of this. When I mean all this, I mean like perspective on white society, white culture, and all these things. I think white people in New York have a kind of a unique outlook because you're in a major city that is thought of as black. But I think if we look at the demographics of New York, it's far more of a, like most parts in this country, a white place. So how do you like deal with that? Like a place like New York that has such a culture that is like black, immigrant, foreign, all those other things, and you know, you kind of being like the white guy and all of that.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, in New York, I always think of it this way. New York is like, it's like 500 different cities, you know? Like, so we talk about New York, like, you gotta be specific, you know? Like, so I think I got very, very lucky in the circumstances with which I was raised in. Like, I was a kid who didn't have much parental supervision. My mom was working. My dad was doing what many dads of New York do, which is like out here and, you know, whatever, drugs, alcohol, all that shit. I didn't see him much. And so I was just in the streets I lived in. I played basketball, and honestly, that's where I made all of my like earliest friendships. And most people were like Dominican or black or Puerto Rican, you know, and I was the white boy, and you get a very different perspective on the world. And then, you know, I also could traffic in the white world, you know, which they couldn't in the same way. I didn't understand that at the time, you know. I didn't understand that like white people were nice to me, and like my friend Francisco, like white people might not really fuck with him, you know. So yeah, I think that just, you know, from the beginning of my life, I was just like, yo, this is what life should be like. And also, you get to experience different cultures in New York and take the best little bits from all of them. Take all the wisdom, take the best food, take the best culture, the dance, the art, you know.
Can I be messy? That sounds like real colonizer vibes, like taking the best of each part of New York and.
Well, okay, and maybe it is, you know what I mean. This may be a blind spot of mine, you know. But what I would say is that, like, I think in this moment in time, like, we live in a generation where it's like international, and New York is an international city. Like, hip hop is the combination of basically like three major cultures: the native people of the Caribbean, native people of West Africa, and like whatever European influence you want to say added to it, you know? So like cultures mix. That's what cultures do. You know what I mean? Now, do people colonize this shit? Yes. You know, are those lines blurry? Yes. But at the end of the day, like, we are in a postmodern society where like we've all been jumbled the fuck up with all sorts of crazy influences. And it's interesting to see what makes us feel more alive. Like, that's what art is, you know? What makes us, touches our soul and shit. So like hip hop touched my soul from the moment I remember. Like, my sister played me like Biggie when I was 5 and 6, and like that's what I related to, you know? And like, I don't know necessarily why, like, but some of the themes, like having a drug addict for a father, like having a crazy mother, being poor, like I lived in New York, like I like talk about DMX, like I used to see the Rough Riders fucking street teams go up and down my block blasting like Rough Riders anthem, and it's hard not to fall in love. Yeah. And like I can understand how it could be seen as a colonizer, but for me, bro, like I fell in love. Like
no, that's what. No, go for it.
I'm about to say. So even though you're white, you're like,
yes, he is white. I don't know if you knew that,
but I'm just saying, like, there's levels to the whiteness, because you got the, you got the immigrant whites, and then you got like the ones that feel like they've been here for a long time.
Okay, I like that. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like with your people being, no offense, but Jewish, like they weren't. No, because it's just like, you know, I don't want people to be like he's anti-Semitic. You know what I'm saying? Things like that.
I'm a Jew, so I can't be anti-Semitic.
I'm about to say, like,
no, I'm talking about me, not.
No, but like he is Jewish, so
yeah, so
to say his people are Jewish, I don't think that is.
So it's just like
I can speak on it.
Yeah, so
I have the.
So what was it like growing up, especially like? Because you didn't grow up in the Jewish community in New York.
No, like
that's interesting.
Yeah, like,
what is it like being a white person who maybe doesn't really identify as a Jew but is Jewish?
Yeah, and
it's like,
and then grow up in the community and then fell in love with this other community.
Yeah, like to me, I only grew up in New York. Like I grew up at the basketball court on 109th Street in Amsterdam, like scrounging change together to see how much macaroni and cheese we can get from the chicken place down the street. Like that's my childhood memories, you know. So like that's in my heart, you know. Then like I knew my family was Jewish, but like I had a weird family, man. Like they, like, you know, we talking about grandmas earlier today. Like there was no family bonds, bro. There's no love. Like when I was a kid, like no one helped us. Like my mom, like my dad sort of fucked her over, and like her family. This is one of the things about white culture. The family bonds are not as tight. In my experience, and I've seen it in like my Christian family, which hasn't talked to me since I was 5. Haven't heard a word from them since my dad like left. And then my Jewish family that like honestly haven't heard many more words since I was 5. You know what I mean? They were like, that's my crazy sister moved to New York and she's like broke and dates this nuts guy, you know, whatever, you know? So for me, I always was like, New York is my home. These are my people. Like I felt like I don't know, like a little bit like what we call like a
nomad.
Yeah, nomad, or like you know, like the abandoned children who like just find their way, you know. Orphan, yeah.
The black sheep.
Yeah, and I grew up right on the edge of Harlem, right when hip hop was exploding. So what are you gonna do? You get with the wave, you know what I mean? Like, what was I gonna?
I like it.
You know,
get with it or get lost.
Yeah, like I have a friend that I was friends with when I was like 13, and he didn't get with it. Like he was like, he came to my high school, but he was from Riverdale in the Bronx, which is like a Jewish community in the Bronx. And he was a nice kid, but he just like, he was just like, I don't know. He just didn't enjoy.
He didn't feel it.
Yo, like I think he honestly was not comfortable being around like dark skinned people. Like he grew up in a very, very white place, like, and it was not comfortable to him. And that's the real shit. Like that racist training is so deep, and it's not just in the South. Like that shit is in every big city. Like New York is the most segregated city in this country. The school system is the most segregated school system in this. You go to fucking Coney Island. Do you know what I mean? Like it is. It's like you're back in time, you know, it's really fucked up. And then you go to Wall Street and it's like people make $1 billion, you know? And like, I don't know. I think it's just always important to specify.
Just the day that you went to Wall Street, that person probably made $1 billion, like shit. You know what I'm saying?
So for me, I think you hit on a lot of interesting.
I'm a little high. It's high codes.
I'm about to get higher, beloved.
One thing that you hit on that I don't think a lot of people maybe talk about is that, like, this idea that white life has levels. Like, to being white isn't just one thing. So I think it's one thing for us to talk about. I think it's another thing for someone who actually is part of the community or is white to have that say. So for you, what do you see as, like, the big difference between how you see yourself versus maybe how you think other white people see themselves?
It's a really interesting question. I think most white people refuse to even address the concept of whiteness. Like, you say, how do you feel being white? And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, what the fuck do you think we mean? Like, we live in a racial caste system. How do you feel about being at the top of it? You know what I mean?
Ooh.
And, like, it's a real question. And, like, I don't know. Like, I always think about, like, when I went to Maryland, I met a lot of, like, rich white people. Mm-hmm. And I really hadn't known them before. And, yeah, they insulate themselves from, like, the suffering of other people in this country, essentially.
And you went to UMD, so
yeah.
That you got the insulated of insulated white people.
Yeah, I was like, wow, I didn't realize people are this racist. Yes. I was like in New York, like literally, like my childhood was being like I played for Riverside Church, right? I was the only white kid in Riverside Church when I was there. You know what I mean? Like that was sort of like the reality I was in, which I didn't realize was mad weird in this country. Mm-hmm. But I've come to see that was very weird. And then I went to Maryland and I was like, oh, like these people have never even like been to like a black family's house. You know what I mean? It's like it is so segregated, and you see the results. Like you guys are from Maryland, so I know you know these white people. Yeah, I just learned about them late in life.
But one of our very close friends went to UMD. We partied many of night at UMD.
I will say the parties were fun. You know what I mean? Like,
right, so I got a question though. That's interesting. As someone who is white and knows other people, when you go to Maryland and you sort of meet the first time you meet like white people who are looking at you like, hey, you should kind of be down with with what I'm kind of thinking, what goes through your mind?
But you pulled up with like 5 black guys.
Well, I went to UMD, I didn't know one person. I know anybody who's going there. And let me hit this one more time. That's good shit.
Appreciate it.
It was weird, man. Like, I was basketball obsessed. Like, so I went to UMD and I was like, yo, I'm play basketball. But at UMD, as you guys know, there's 2 kinds of basketball. There's white basketball and there's black basketball.
For sure.
And obviously, like...
And there's 2 different courts for say.
There's 2 different courts, 2 different areas. Mm-hmm. And, like, of course, like, the white games were whack. Like, like they just weren't nice. No one talked shit. Like, no one knew how to play basketball. And so when I went to Maryland, I would, like, play basketball. And that's why I made a whole group of friends. We had, like, a rec team, and it was all dudes from PG.
Okay.
Like... And that was it. We hung out, we like get food and stuff, but like literally I'd be the only white person on the team. And then I go back to my dorm and it's like nothing but white kids on the dorm floor. And it was like perplexing to me, you know? And the truth is I kind of had 2 different social groups, honestly. And like it was weird. Like I was definitely around some white people when I was like 18, 19 saying like crazy racist shit that I was just like, what is coming out of this person's mouth? And like I was so insecure, like I wanted them to fuck with me. You know, I wanted girls to like me. And so I was just like, let me just get these people to like me. And that was kind of my experience there. And it took me a while to be like, yo, fuck these people. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Mitchell.
So I'm curious about this idea because I think we all go through it in life. Like we all have to pick and decide. Like,
Fuck, these people felt harsh. I was a little harsh, but fuck their actions.
Fuck them.
Fuck them. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
listen, you're the one who told me
You're
we can't be apologizing for racism and their bad behavior.
And there's no way you're in higher education doing things as ignorantly as racism.
Don't give higher education all that. But I'm
They
just
give higher education that. So it's just like if you're gonna give it that much, then
so we're all insecure. I think that's a facet of life. But for you, like, was there a moment or a time when you were like, man, maybe I should start caring about this thing, about these issues on like a more humane level, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so for my life, like, I think at a young age, like white people in this country, they try so hard to hide from you how awful this country has been to Black Americans and continues to be. Because basically, like, if white people don't believe it, then they're not going to do anything about it. You know, so think about why you never learn about Jim Crow. I never learned a fucking thing about Jim Crow when I was in high school, you know? Learned all about the Holocaust, right? One of them happened in this country, one of them happened in another country. Why don't we learn about the one that happened in this country, right? Because the people who did Jim Crow are still in power largely, you know? So they don't want to upset the apple cart. So for me, like, I remember when I was 13, I had a teacher hand me the autobiography of Malcolm X, and that shit changed my life. I never thought about the world, the country the same way. Like, I remember just again and again reading the bit about how his dad was murdered, and like I was just like, yo, there's an evil in this country that I was unaware of, and it's a very specific thing, you know. It's obsessed with skin color, and you know, as you learn more, it doesn't get that much more complex, honestly. Skin color and money, you know, that's kind of the game. And like throughout my life, I would be like, well, what can I do? I'm 13, you know what I mean? Like I want to change shit, but like what does that even mean? You know, I wish it was different. And you got to get older and like learn what tools are, you know. But also I would battle my self-interest, you know. Because honestly, like doing political work takes time, you know, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You know, like we produced like a political TV show together. You know what I mean? Like that took a lot of time to get good enough to do that, to make the connections to do that. So I look at it as like we've been training, and we didn't know what we were training for, and now we have a little bit of a sense what we're training for. It's like, yo, we have a country that is pretty fucked up, and we'd like to make it a little better. And that's my perspective, you know, whether it's through art, whether it's through any political shit, like whatever you can do to shine this bitch up a little and leave it a little happier than you found it, and a little more just, like, it's on you to do that, in my mind.
Wow. Is there, outside of the autobiography of Malcolm X, is there any sort of piece of literature? Is there any work, person, speech, song, anything that you have come across that you were like, wow, this really kind of helped aid or guide me in learning and moving forward?
Yeah, for me, like, when I was like 12 or 13, like Talib Kweli and Common were like, I listened to them endlessly. And I felt like they taught me so much about life and a lot about this country. You know what I mean? Like, and they were just even, I think I listen back now and I'm like, yo, I didn't even know what this shit meant. And now I do. Like, he would say like, you know, I was listening to a lot of Tupac lines just about like Bobby Hugin like caught 2 shots or whatever. I was like, who the fuck is Hugin? You know, who's Huey P. Newton, right? I was like, who the fuck is this? When I was a kid. And now I'm like, oh, I get what he was talking about, you know, and I get that was actually a political education. We're getting through music. So yeah, bro, like Common, and I know people don't fuck with Common like he's a poppin' rapper, but like those first couple albums, like it's pretty brilliant for me, and I learned a lot.
I think Common fell off when the whole Canada Dry thing. I think niggas was fucking with him up until that point.
When he got some
When
money.
that commercial?
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to the money, man. We can all say we'd say no to the money.
I'm talking about when he was Dish Drake and he was just like, you Canada Dry.
I thought you meant he was doing commercials for like sodas.
Like when he was.
I feel like he did Pepsi.
Yeah, he did like he had a mad commercial.
Remember he was in the movie about the Nets and he like dated Queen Latifah?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I don't know.
That's just right?
Mm-hmm. Was it good?
That joint was decent.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
Queen Latifah carried it.
It didn't hook me in.
You gonna start all that just to be like, I didn't see it. So I got a few more white questions before we turn it down and we.
I listen. I think this is the shit that should be talked about in this country. So
You know what?
Away.
I like to troll somebody. There's a guy named Emmanuel Acho. He says something about like having conversations with a black man. We're gonna call this episode having conversations with a white man.
Well, the problem is white people in this country. So the idea that black people need to put on the spotlight, it's like no, white people need to put on the spotlight.
So can you? All right,
Yeah.
I need you to set something up. Not your most racist friends, because I don't have time to talk to racists. But your most like white friends who you think could be converted to better behavior. Like you don't have to put them on the spot. We can blur their faces out, you know. But just like bring them here so we can have a conversation with them, so we can like maybe get their unfiltered thoughts.
So when you say bring them to better behavior, what do you mean like they're like what would you describe as
well, my thing is all right. So I think this is my hot take. My hot take is that there's kind of basically like we've talked about this 3 to 4 different types of groups of white people. There are your white people who understand the system as a whole. They understand that being white, this is a caste system. They benefit all these things, and they actively want to work to change it. That is a very minute and small group, but they are there.
Folk like you.
They're there, and they've been there throughout history, but it's been one dude.
Shout out John Brown. But there's been a few others.
That was a real man. Like, that dude was about it.
There's been a few others, but you know, like, there's that group. The next group is the group that understands and does not care. Like, they're like, bro, it's here, none of my business. I can't do anything about it. Hey, white privilege, it might be real, it might not, but hey, not my beef. Not my beef. And they are very adamant that
I got one for you in that group.
Being white is not their issue. Like, they cannot help the fact that they are white.
Said it, I was like, oh yeah, him.
Being white,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, he gets up, he's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea that they're white, what can I do about that? I have no issue.
Yeah.
And
I'm not racist.
And there's that, and that's that group of white people that like when they say certain things about certain people, they're like, hey, look, it's just the numbers. You know, that's just what it says. You know, all those type of rhetoric that we kind of be like,
I don't know, buddy.
Well, so I got you there. So I have one in that group. You know what I mean? So, and you know, I'm not someone I'm close with, but like that's just my understanding of kind of like they had a political education, they know this shit, but for whatever reason they're like, it's not really a big deal to me. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's such a giant sentiment of just anti-blackness in this country in so many different ways, and it really permeates to the level where there's not a lot of empathy for black Americans when there's empathy for white Americans doing the same things, right? You know what I mean? Like, the easiest way to look at it is like heroin, or right? You know what I mean? Like, in the 80s when heroin was just fucking ruining so many black families, right? White people were like, they're savages doing heroin. Now heroin's destroying white families, and they're like, it's an epidemic. We need help. Help these good people. They have depression and anxiety. That's why they use drugs, you know? No empathy for black people. And so the problem is, like, if you have a culture that actively is like, let's not empathize with black people, how do you start?
Criminals.
Exactly, right? DMX, right? DMX is a sympathetic story. Yeah, people are gonna be like, yo, he's a drug addict. You know, and it's just like, you see the anti-blackness right there, you know? And yeah, it's tough. I don't know. You said, like, how do you get someone on board with that? And it's tough because you're saying, how do you create empathy in people? And holy shit, that's a hard ass question to answer. Fuck if I know.
Do you? It's funny because
I wish I had something better.
No. It's
No, that's a great question.
I think you hit the $1 million question because empathy.
Did I win a prize?
No, not at all. Empathy doesn't. Empathy cannot
Was
be.
that colonizing behavior? Ask if I won a prize.
No,
Bit, no?
that was just funny. Okay. A little bit more than funny. But I like that. See, that's the whole thing about just all individuals. We just need to be able to take better stock. Like, as men, we have to take better stock of like how we come off to women. I think as able-bodied people, we should take better stock about how we come off to people who are not.
Like the handicap?
Yes. So I think that's like when you are...
I just had to make sure.
Yeah, when you are part of any group in which you tend to have benefits or you tend to be able to be part of the majority, I think it is imperative for you to take stock as to why and then understand that. So I don't think it hurts for white people to be like, maybe black people are going through this because of X, Y, Z.
I will say you did one thing there that white people do that I hate, which is you sort of like
lumped everything together.
You lumped everything together. Like racism is one of I think people should say anti-blackness because like racism and anti-blackness are different. Do you know what I mean? Like anti-blackness is a structure in this country that's hundreds of years old that is like fucking well built and well thought out. You know, and so that is a very different thing when we talk about that.
Than racism
like someone not liking you because your skin color is not the racism of a nation. You know what I mean? That is a different thing. So I don't know. So that is something that I feel like is something that all of us as a society are gonna have to deal with eventually. Like we saw it, bro. Like the white supremacists stormed the Capitol. That shit was about anti-blackness. The whole country has been about anti-blackness. Slavery, they convinced the poor white people that black people would take their jobs, and nothing's ever changed. And then they gave all the propaganda, and that was that.
So I gotta finish up my groups of white people.
Let's go.
We're at the mid tier, I would call them good white people.
So in Buddhism, they have the 3 tiers of heaven, of 3 tiers of a good life, and then 3 tiers of hell. I feel you should have doing this. Like, it's like the 3 houses at the top. Like, the top is the best, and then the bottom hell is like crazy hell. Like, they stick needles in you all day.
Okay, interesting. So these are my next 2.
Okay, next tiers.
But my next group is the group of white people.
Smacks, man. Like, this is
Is the group of white people who I think know they're racist, but don't want to outwardly say they are racist. So they understand what the benefits of this are, like this society and what it means, and are willing to go and do things perfectly that helps continue it, and have no issue. And they're like, hey, they're like the people we just talked about who are like, hey, what's my beef? And they're like, shit, I'm about to get mine too. Not just I don't realize it. Yeah, I'm white, and what? So I should feel bad for being white. It's my issue. You should work. That's the most interesting group, because those tend to be a lot of your teachers, a lot of like your executives, a lot of your like the managers in places in which you're the people who hire people,
like
the people
elected officials.
A lot of those. Well, that's my next group.
every police officer ever.
Most police, a good majority of police officers.
Sheriffs.
I think my next group is my ultimate are your full blown racists. You're people who ultimately want to keep the society at its peak white supremacist running and standard. And those are the guys who,
like Mitch McConnell, yeah.
And I think those guys come in tiers. Like, everybody knows the KKK. It's easy to be like, oh, you're in the KKK, or you're in the Proud Boys. But the Mitch McConnells of the world are the ones who are far more sinister and far more deadly, who we don't really talk about. Like, people call Mitch McConnell a bad person every day of the week, and then let him continue to do his job.
Shit is Joe Biden's a white supremacist. You know what I mean? Like, just to be honest, you know what I mean? Like, that's like most white people in this country are white supremacists. Maybe they don't talk about it a lot, but in their behavior, their actions, and what they choose to spend their time on, they prove it.
Yeah, Senator, he's definitely proved it.
You know, like, so I mean, we're gonna keep the question. I don't know. I didn't really have. I feel like I didn't let you finish the question. So
I just think that the idea of most, because I mean, you're gonna take us somewhere else. I think the idea that most white people are white supremacists, I think that's a heavy charge, and I think that's something
because it's part of the culture. Like that, I think like white supremacy like kind of is white culture. Like, white people are not real, right? Like, my family is Russian immigrants from Russian Jews from like Latvia. And my dad's people were like, I don't know, like French Canadian, right? So like, white is not a thing. White is a political organizing tool that white people, quote unquote, were like, yo, if we all say we're white, suddenly we're like stronger, you know? And also we can get all these poor white people to stay the fucking line if they think they're better because of this. That's basically the gift you give poor white peasants is, hey, at least you're not black. And that's how all the rich people in this country, I think all the rich white people, make sure the poor white people aren't like, yo, why don't we get more bread? Right? Because you see, think about who you think of as the most like outrageously racist people. Like, honestly, a lot of them are like broke as shit. And it's like, yo, what do you even get from this? Yeah. You know, I've always wondered about that. I'm like, yo, like, you basically suffer from the same shit people in any like hood suffer from, you know? Like,
if you're a poor white, come talk to us.
I think like that's, remember the shit that Fred Hampton did when he was like, yo, let me go talk to these poor whites.
For sure.
Yeah. If you're a poor white, come let us know why you so angry. Like, let's see if we can come to some middle. That's when Martin Luther King got killed. You know that shit, right? When he started. Whoa, I'm not trying to get killed. I mean, I understand.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm being facetious,
but no, but for real, like when he started the
poor people's.
No, we're not starting the poor people's march. That's not us. But
that's kind of true.
But like, we'll make a TV show about it, maybe. And, you know,
that's a great segue.
People, you know?
So let's get off of the white people. We'll come back. You'll bring more white friends, and we'll talk about white people later. But let's talk about something a little bit more in the happy sense. Creativity.
Used to be coworkers.
Yeah, are you willing to share like your working career history, or is that something you
anything you want to ask about? I'm down.
All right, so how did you like? I think it's people. It's interesting because I think a lot of people fair on. I think like when white people get into in particular fields like ours, it's through nepotism, it's through whatever. But that's not.
What field are you guys in, Charles?
We're in the creative, I would say, TV industry.
Okay.
So creative arts, making stuff. But you don't really fit that mold of white guy who's like dad is an executive here or
It's like my dad is the town drunk in Harlem.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like your uncle wasn't somebody
No connections there, bro.
Yeah,
I was desperate that no one knew who my dad was.
Yeah,
I was like, yo, I want to change my last name. Like, yeah, the opposite.
So for you, how just work, working hard type shit, find yourself getting into this field?
Well, and this connects to our previous conversation, which like I still had the white privilege though. You know what I mean? Like I still got to be a white boy who could walk in and be like, hey, how are you doing? It's so nice to meet you. You know what I mean? I want this job so bad. And they could be like, oh, look, a little white guy, just like I was a little white guy, you know? Mm-hmm. That's the way I think about it working. And it's true. Like, people liked me, you know? Like, I got an intern. I mean, I was always, like, I was very hungry. As soon as I got to Maryland, I was like, I'm not here to go to school. I'm here to get, like, jobs in D.C. And I wanted to work in sports. I was, like, obsessed with sports. So I applied to every single thing you could think of, like the Maryland football team, the Maryland basketball team, Nike, Adidas. And the first job I got, I was working for Chris Paul's agent at Octagon Sports Marketing in McLean, Virginia. And I was 18, and I got a couple suits for my mom. They were like $40 suits. They were like the jankiest shit ever. And 2 days a week, I would get up in my Maryland dorm at like 4 a.m, because it's a long-ass trip to McLean, Virginia.
Oh, we know.
You take like
you're at the
2-3 buses, 2-3 trains, and then you just gotta walk in Virginia for a while. And I was like the happiest I ever been in my life. I was like, yo, like I'm out here, I had a suit. I would like make pitch decks to like try to get new people recruited to the sports agency. Like you never, like Shan Foster, Joey Dorsey, like these throwbacks, you know. Mm-hmm. Courtney Lee was a guy that we helped get. So that was cool. And then I was like, yo, I want to do some other shit, and I would write a lot. And then I got an internship. Well, so someone from PTI, an intern from PTI, randomly came into my first semester class. Mm. You know, you have like just like you have it's almost like advisory kind of. You know, you don't really do shit. And she walked in and she was like, I'm an intern at PTI, and all the boys were like, you work at ESPN? And I was like, I'm getting that job. I was like, I don't know what I have to do. And so I went to that teacher like every week, and I was like, yo, can I have the email for the person at PTI? And she was like, no, I'm sorry, like you need more experience, blah, blah, blah. And eventually after a year, she gave it to me. And that is a guy named Matt Owano, who you know, and I hit that guy up a lot. And he didn't respond at first, but eventually he was like, hey, yeah, let's talk, you know? And when I was, I guess like 20, I got an internship at PTI, and that was my foot in the door. You know, for me, that was the shit where I was like, you gotta get a plug, you know? And for me, I met amazing people there. I don't know if we want to name, you know.
It's okay. We can leave the Oracle. Yeah. We can leave the Oracle out of this.
If the Oracle sees it, he knows he's the Oracle. So
you know who you are.
You know. And those who know. But, you know, anyway, yeah. So, like, I met good people, and they nurtured me, and I was hungry. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing about New York is if you grow up kind of poor in New York, you're hungry. Like, you see people who have popping shit around you, and you're like, damn, I'm fucking shit. Like, I'm eating Chef Boyardee tonight. Like, I can't tell you how tight I was when I would just be like, Chef Boyardee again, you know? And I would be like, let me melt some cheese over this shit and make it, like, palatable. But, yeah, so, you know, that was my entree. And then, I don't know.
No. So, all right. So, I think you could just skip over, like, all right, you get the internship. Now, I think as working a person, so, like, as a working person, now you're doing this. Now this is your job. Tell me what are some of
when
that.
I had the job or the internship?
No, we're past the internship point.
Okay.
Because we know you, like you said, you found a plug. So as you work at this,
that's really what life is, right?
If you found at this job, what was it like?
On the same plug. He's a smart man.
Touche.
I remember the phone call where I was like, you better find this fucking plug, bro.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because that's what
I know. You know the story of that phone call. He was Chuck was like, yo, I think I'm gonna take a government job. I think it's gonna be I'll get some good benefits.
Relax. We gonna get to that. That's what I'm saying. It's colonized behavior right here. Relax. Calm down.
Only because he had the plug.
Listen, I got you.
That's what I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
If you didn't have the plug, that's fine.
I would have got. I'm gonna get you there. I'm gonna get you there. So like, relax, you idiot. All right. So like, we're at like 2011, 2012. What does your career look like at that?
Okay.
At that
so
moment.
2011, I graduated college, and I had no job offers. I was like, dang. And I got some. This guy Matawana. Recently, maybe I shouldn't say his name. I don't know if you guys don't say names in this, but
we can bleep out.
He's a good man.
We're good at editing.
I'd like to give him a shout out. He's a good dude. Like, he deserves it. Matawana, thank you. Like, you fucking changed my life. That's a good man, for real. And he was like, hit me up on Facebook. He's like, yo, there might be this like new show with Dan Le Batard and his dad. I was like, what the fuck? Dan Le Batard and his dad. And I was like, I love Dan Le Batard back then. I would listen to his radio show. Like, it was just mad funny. And frankly, everything in sports was really corny back then. Like, they're just... Or it was just like, it wasn't...
No, you're right.
I don't know. People didn't laugh as much.
It was very bland. It was very Mike in the morning.
Yeah.
Ew.
And it didn't reflect the culture I grew up in and the culture I loved, which is like New York.
I'm crushing this wine, y'all.
You have been.
Drip, 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 crushed. See, I'm hydrating with water. This is what we're sponsoring.
Balance, kids. Balance.
I still been drinking water since I finished my cup.
What was I saying? Oh, 2011?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically hit me up on Facebook and, oh, yo, this is actually a crazy story. I can tell you this.
All right, come on.
All right. So I took a different job because I was like, I got to have some money.
I should talk about me, but we can get some.
That's true, but I'm like you. I hedge my bets always in life. I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna end up with nothing. Like I've had pretty close to nothing, and I'm just like, don't want to be back
We
there.
ain't
Fuck
going
that
back
shit.
to nothing, baby.
Yeah. And I want to help other people, but I also want to make sure I don't have nothing. Like, so that's the balance. But yeah. So, fucking damn. Where was we?
You took the other job.
Took the other job, and then I get an email from the plug. Mm. So there's a man who's the plug, and I had never gotten an email from the plug before in my life. I didn't know he knew my name. I was like, oh shit. He was like, I heard you were a good intern. Like, granted, I was his intern. He was like, heard from other people, and he was like, yeah, like we have this new show, and like I'd love for you to come in for an interview tomorrow. I was like, it was 7 p.m. in New York, and he's telling me to come to an interview tomorrow morning in DC at 9 a.m. I was like, this is my moment. I was like, I can't negotiate. I just got to say yes and figure it out. So I was like, oh shit. And he was like, I hear some clips that we filmed with Dan Le Batard and his dad, and it was like the original pilot clips of Highly Questionable. And he was like, can you watch these and review them for me? And I was like at the gym working out when I got these emails. And so I went up to the lady at the gym and I was like, yo, can I use your computer? I have to watch these clips. And I put my headphones in the ladies' gym, the computer at the gym. She was really cool. And I literally sat there watching like the pilot clips of Highly Questionable, being like, I like this, like I didn't like that. You know, whatever you do to get thoughtful feedback to show someone like you can help them. And he was like, I love it. He was like, yeah, come in 9 a.m. And I was like, all right. So I went home and I was like, Mom, can you please help me buy like a ticket for a train to get to DC? And she was like, okay, cool. So I bought a train ticket and I got into DC at like midnight. My old college dorm room, like I could still stay there. So I went to College Park, slept with no sheets, nothing. Like literally I just brought my suit. And then I woke up, didn't have a fucking toothbrush. I had to go buy one. It was so like last minute. I went to DC, went to interview, and that was it. I got the job offer like a couple hours later, and I was like, yo, that changed my whole life. Like that. When you get a good plug, like, you gotta know what to do with it. Like, if you get your moment, you know?
My thing is, what's the first check that you got from the plug and the new job, and you were like, oh, shit.
Well, I would tell you, so the first offer, it was less money than I got from the other job. Ooh. And I was like, I still gotta take it, because I know the upside, you know? Ooh. And I was like, I live by a few phrases that like I've learned in New York always, and like one of them is scared money don't make money. And like it may sound overly simplistic, but there's a lot of wisdom in it. You know, like at the end of the day, like if you want to do some shit, you got to risk some shit.
For sure.
And if it doesn't feel a little risky, you're not really doing anything new. And so I've always made peace with that little bit of risk. You know, that some people are going to be like, fuck you, like you're whack or whatever. And yeah, that's life. So the first check I got, bro, honestly, first check I got was not the check, but it was when he told me how much I made, and I was gassed. Like I was like, yo, I know I got my first raise to $40,000 a year. I was like, whew, I'm worth $40,000. was like, I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm getting $40,000 this year.
Oh my God.
And she was like, first of all, you're not getting $40,000.
She was like,
first of all, you're getting like 25.
She was like, buddy, IRS us. IRS us.
I know. And I was like, suddenly, I literally was walking the streets and I was like, I'm worth it's the capitalist indoctrination, bro. Like, and then every raise I got, I'll be like, I'm worth $50,000. You know, and like, it's sick stuff, really, you know. But it made me happy. I was 22. I was like, God damn, this is heaven.
Oh my God, that is fucking amazing. So let's move on a little bit.
I didn't really buy any.
I'm about to say
$850 in rent. Like, life was good.
Sounds beautiful.
It does. Simpler times.
Simpler times, man. What a time. So let's move on to 2015. I think it's safe to
years, bro. Okay, let's go.
I think it's safe to say that you were instrumental in the formation, not of the Jesus and Miro show, but it coming alive to Viceland or coming to TV on Viceland.
Yeah, I mean that was like the coolest ride of my life. You know what I mean?
Talk to me through, because I remember one story in particular that I've kind of heard in parts, but I think you should share, like, give us the full details of you doing a trip or you trying to meet.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you.
So
okay.
what exactly was this?
This all started like sort of like December 2015, January 2016. I was depressed. I was lying in bed in a really awful relationship. Like, just, you have a relationship where you realize you're like, damn, like, we don't love each other. And you're like, fuck. And I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I want to go back to New York. I was living in DC. I'd worked on Highly Questionable for 5 years. I had some good people I worked with, including yourself, some other great people.
Shout out Peach.
Shout out Peach.
Shout out Kravitz.
Serafina, Federica, whole gang. Yeah, so I was like, I want something new. And I had been proposing shows to the...
I love Megan. I'm sorry. I had to shout out Megan.
Yeah, of course. I had been proposing... I realized that, like, once you have the plug in the TV world, you propose shows. Like, that's the game. Shows make money. If you got a good idea for a show, someone who has the connections will, like, sort of, like, as you would say, stamp your good idea. I learned that shit from you, stamp that good idea. And so I was like, that's the paradigm I'm working in. So I proposed mad shows. Most of them were fucking terrible. Most of them got fucking laughed at. One of them early on was like, oh shit, we might make this. Fell apart, but it made me see like, ooh, I could do this. And I was a huge fan of Jesus and Miro. Like, their podcast was incredible. And I was like, yo, these dudes like on television would be sick, you know? And they were at MTV2, but like they were using them on like Joking Off, but they weren't really using them. I was just like, yo, they're not even doing shit right now, really. You know, I know they must be sick. And I didn't know them at all. And one day I was just like, I would think of ideas for shows and I was just writing to myself. I was like, a show like Jesus and Miro, but like on, I don't know, some like HBO type shit. They could say anything, talk about sports, politics, pop culture, hip hop culture, like whatever the fuck you want to call it. And so I ended up sending a tweet to Miro. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall. I was like, hey, I got an idea. Like, can you like, DM me your email? Send me the email, and I can like pull up the email. Like I have the email still. Like I wrote him this whole long email, just like, yo, like I work for Highly Questionable with Bomani, damn, blah blah blah. Like I think you guys could have a show that's almost like this, that comes on every day. That like, and I would love to talk to you about it. I was like, I'm from New York. Like we like the same shit. And he was like, he looped in his manager, and like, yo, the next weekend, me and the manager and Jesus met at a McDonald's in the Bronx and just like went to a bar, chopped it up for 3 hours, And I was like, yo, listen, Miro didn't come because Miro never comes. Miro's always late. He's got kids, you know what I mean? But
4 now.
And so the story was, I was like, yo, listen, like, because it's all about the plug at the end of the day. I'm not the plug. I may be the guy who can see the vision, but I don't have the connections. I don't have that juice. But I could be like, I know who does, and I know how to talk to them.
Self-awareness, kids.
Very important. So I told them at that meeting, we were at the bar, I told Jesus and the manager, I was like, yo, listen, my plug is a huge fan of yours. He doesn't know about this meeting that I'm having with you right now, but he's going to love it. And so let's get brunch next weekend at this restaurant, and he's going to come. I'm going to tell him this week, he's going to love it, don't worry about it. And so then I went to the plug, and I was like, he didn't know anything about this. And I was like, hey, like, you have a meeting with me, Jesus and Miro and their manager this weekend. And he was like, I have a meeting? And I was like, yeah, we have a meeting. And I told him the idea and he loved it. And we went and,
history.
Yeah, I mean, and then, it worked out in a weird way where like, we sort of became like, all right, if we do a show, we're going to do this as the production team, like the plug, me, my crew, which was like Chuck and a couple of others.
Hold on, all right, so can I tell my story? So can I tell my story?
Yeah.
All right, so this is mad interesting because
I'm very curious to how you found about it, because like I was up in my bed in January 2016, like writing emails to myself about why this would be a good show. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, it's
so like I'm curious how you experienced this.
So let me just go backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
So I graduated college December 2014. I graduated college August 2014. I walked in December. I applied for the job at Highly Questionable in like September because my friend, one of my best friends, Keith, sent me an email and was like, hey, apply to this thing. Like, he was like, it's a Facebook thing. It's a few questions. It's like 3 questions. He was like, I think you should do it.
I wrote that shit.
He was like, I think you should do it. You'd be good for it.
Wow.
I ran the intern program.
Yeah, he was like, he was like, I think you'd be good for it. So yeah, you should do it. I was like, all right, bet. So I had sent the questions in, and the thing was, at the time I didn't know, but I had applied to Around the Horn.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a few months earlier, and got to like the second or third, whatever round, and then they were like, "Nah, we don't want you." So then I was kind of like, "Fuck it, I'm kind of off this TV shit."
I didn't realize that.
I was kind of like, "Oh man, I'm kind of off this TV
it's
shit."
Good to take those
So
L's.
then-
About to take that government Johnson.
So then Keith.
No. That's
No, this is
different,
later.
though. That's different. That's later.
So then
That's
Keith
later.
hit me, was like,
I
do
know
this.
this story very well.
He said, hit me. So I was like, man, fuck it, I'll do this. So I did it, and it was like, yo, I was like, oh shit, bet. At the time, I was working at the paper, the PG Sentinel at Atlanta.
I remember you used to cover high school
And I was
basketball.
covering high school basketball. I saw
Whatever.
Markel Fultz, saw a bunch of other cats play football, basketball, all that shit. And I was doing
forgot
like
about
beat
that.
reporting too around like Bladensburg. So
That impressed me. That impressed me. Sure. I was like, that was one thing I always looked at when an intern came through. I was like, there was one intern who always was like, I want to be a writer. I was like, what have you written lately? He was like, nothing. I was like, bro, like that's the only qualification. You just gotta write. You gotta write something. And like I always saw you, and I was like, you were always doing shit. You're always getting better. You're always learning crafts.
I remember one time I covered
it shows now. You see it.
a fucking 1812 historical day in Bladensburg. Like, the town of Bladensburg. And I went there. I'm talking to people, getting quotes, all types of shit.
The fuck was that place like in 1812?
That's all I was thinking. So I did all that shit, da-da-da.
Right, like a horror.
And I get the job. No, I don't get the job. The internship is going great. The first check I get, I remember, I was only working 2 days a week. Motherfucker got like $450, almost $500. No like tax, nothing, bro. Shit was wicked. I was like, yo, we're up. Used to give me the check, be like, oh, good work. I used to be like,
You slip, Oracle.
Oh, well,
You slipped.
well, we bleep out. So yeah, so we did all that, boom, 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 and then
I'll smack too. It's okay.
So then all that happens, da 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 da.
We smoked a lot of weed today.
For sure.
That was like 4? No, 3.
No, come on, keep the numbers down.
This shit's it's legal. It's legal in New York now. I don't have to be ashamed of it anymore. Okay. I cope with my anxiety and depression by smoking marijuana. Most of us do.
All right. So continue.
Sorry.
No. The money was like, this is the most money I've ever just gotten from any job ever. And in the days I worked 3 days, it was like we partying this weekend.
It's like you didn't know what the fuck was coming.
It was super chill. I get to just leave. I
didn't either, honestly.
I kind of leave whenever I finish my work. They like. I remember the first time I really got to do some shit. They were like, we're interviewing Patrick Beverly, and they were like, just come up with questions. They were like,
not they, me.
This guy was like, come up with all the questions that you can think of. He was like, anything. He was like, I want unique. He was like, not regular, like anything. So I remember one question in particular. I was like, why do they call you Mr. 94 Feet? And you loved that. You were like, this is the type of question I want. If you give me more questions like this, bro, so good. And I was like, this is kind of easy. So then we were also doing
It is very simple.
We were also
but people ask trash questions in most of these interviews.
We were also doing Podbusters at the time.
Oh yeah, that was good.
And everybody I would just be like singing shit I'm just listening to.
Podbusters, by the way, was when Poppy would rap.
Would rap those
middle.
Shits.
And like for TV shows, you gotta have 4 breaks. But if you have one really, really, really small break, it makes it look like you got 3 segments instead of 4. So we would have Poppy rap
And
just some random shit for like 15 seconds. And people love that shit.
Bro, and they used to ask me, they used to be like, so what do you want the pod buster to be today? That used to be the thing. What do you want the pod buster to be? I'd be like, y'all ain't heard this yet? They'd be like,
there's no charges.
We about to do that.
There's no charges to hit us and
I feel
ask us in group chat.
Chuck ran that shit, right?
Yeah, Peach used to do that. So I'd be like, yo, what y'all, I would literally hit my friends. I'd be like, so what y'all listening to? They asking me what's a good pod buster.
See, it's a family effort. It really is.
Your dad hit us in the group chat and he'll be like,
hey, you got the rest? Hold on. Gotta take a brief intermission. Gotta hit the plug.
your dad ass be.
All right, so shout out to the plug. He stopped by. He helped us. He came through. He brought goodies. But like I was saying, so I'm getting more money in one check than I've ever seen in a fucking life.
And boy, that was an early check, man. I got like, you know.
And it wasn't shit in retrospect.
That's not shit. In retrospect. Like, in retrospect,
it was what it was. So that shit was happening, and I was really like, oh man. But like you said, I gotta hedge my bets. So I needed.
This is when your man.
I needed more.
Almost threw it all away.
I needed a job. Like I had felt like I had graduated, and this
I'll never forget this phone call in my life,
bro. I had walked. I had finished. I did my shit. I came back home, and I had did like maybe one more day of internship. And I told Brad,
you were an intern at this ESPN.
Yeah. I was an intern, and I was like, Brad, I'm about to leave. I'm about to go get this.
What did you think? You were like, I'm not getting a job.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember we were going to the winter break, and I was just like, wow, I had a good run.
Bird in the hand type shit.
I did my thing. I got to meet some cool people during this thing. I got to see some athletes. There's some shit that I'll talk about later on in life. And but I gotta be a grown up, and I gotta go get a job.
Did you send me a text or an email?
No, I think I either texted you, because I texted you because I had like, I was like, yo, I'm not gonna see y'all, and then I think you were like,
he sent an email. The email was just like, hey, thank you so much. This has been a great internship.
I got a homie who's a great.
You were like, my friend will be a great intern, and I was like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah. So
I was like, bro, you're here. The fuck are you doing?
The crazy part was that after that,
why are you throwing this bread away?
The crazy part is after that happened, I had got a job and everything, and I had started training. So I had did like a day or two of training.
You were walking. I feel like the phone call we had, you told me you were walking into the training.
Yes, I was, because I had already did like a thing. Now I was about to go to training, so I did like the employee introduction. I had sat in the meeting. I had did my little competency. I can't say the word. Competency test. Thank you, Shirley. I had said that. I had did that.
This is Friday. This joint can't talk.
I had finished all that.
It's gonna be a messy episode.
And I was good money. And then I get a call. And then did I hit you or did someone hit me?
I feel like you sent me. My recollection is you sent me an email being like,
yeah, but I had said that like a day or two, or maybe like a day or two.
I don't know. I was like, yo, we need to talk because
that's what
I was just like, yo, like. In my mind, I was like, yo, like, you're not getting what's happening here.
Bro,
I was like, yo, like, this could be, like, this is the wave.
You called me. You were like, where you at? I was like, bro, I'm about to walk into it. I was like, I was like, I'm about to walk into this.
Hello, where you at?
It was so urgent for me. I was just like, I couldn't believe he was about to do this.
I was like, I'm about to walk into this training. You were like, where? I was like, bro, I got a job. And I'm like, I'm trying to explain to this shit outside of the building, like this little glass door where I'm seeing people with laptops and shit. I'm like, bro, like
it's a good job. It's gonna pay well.
Like, bro,
he's right.
I was like, yo, it's a good job. I'm gonna get paid. He was like, and then I think I told you to pay, and you were like, huh? You were like, hold on, wait. You were like, hold on. You don't understand. I was like, bro, like I'm trying to explain to him, like, yo, I gotta do this. I need a job.
What did I say? I was like, yo, let me talk to the plug.
You were like, let me talk to him. You were like,
let me talk to the plug.
You were like, hold on. You were like, wait. I think I told you I told you the salary, and you were like, huh? And you were like, wait. Let me go talk to somebody, and I'm gonna call you back. And I was like, so I'm like, this dude is doing too much.
What did you think when I did that?
I'm like, this white boy is doing the fucking most. I'm like, bro, I was in.
Because he texted me. Chuck hit me.
I was like, I'm not even that good of an intern.
He was like,
but the thing is that you like thought processing, like the way a mind works is a nuanced thing. You know what I mean? And like for you, like the one thing I've always admired about you is like you have a really special gift for understanding people's motives and their perspectives, So like that has always helped me. And like in television production, it's all about that shit. It's all about understanding how someone's gonna be perceived, how something's gonna be felt by an audience. And like you've always had a great eye for that. And so I was like, yo, you got the juice. And I was like, and you're in the door. that's the combination, you know, like.
Yeah. No, see, at the time, I had no
Did you get a call from the plug?
So this is
That's
what happens.
right?
So this is what happens next.
See.
Literally, I lied to you not 15 or 20 minutes later, I get a call.
From the plug.
And he's like, do you have time to speak? I'm like, yeah, I mean, of course, for you.
He sent a goodbye email to everybody.
Because this
he sent a goodbye and thank you. Charles said to everybody, he's like, goodbye. Thank you, bon voyage.
Yeah. So Brad hits me, and Brad, in the conversation, he's like, bro, when he calls you, just listen. I promise. He was like, I promise you, just listen and say yes. I'm like, huh? He's like, no, I'm telling you, say yes. I'm like, let me hear what this motherfucker say. He's like, so I hear you have a job.
Don't play him like that.
I was like, I was like, yeah, you know, my thing at home, you know, I'm trying to, you know, work. I gotta do this, da da da. He's like, well, what would you think about coming back? And I was like, in like what? He was like, you're not gonna be like a full time, but you're gonna work for me. And if if things work out, well, you know, I can't promise you anything. He was like, I can't promise you anything.
He always says that shit.
And
manage expectations.
And you know, he's like, I don't want you to think that. But he was like, I think that we got some good things going. And he was like, we can make things work. And you know, I promise, you know, I'll do what I can for you and make sure. And I was like. And he was like, and this is where he got me, because it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I believe. And he was like, you know what? Don't even make a decision now. Take the rest of the week, and you know what? You can come back, and if you do it, you'll get paid. You know, we'll work out. Oh, don't worry about anything.
Okay.
Just take the rest of the week and decide what you want to do. I know. And I was like, hold on.
And that's why I remember we had our conversation.
This motherfucker.
So what did this conversation sound like? When Chuck hit you up, what was he sounding like?
No, but let me tell you what. After this, I remember being in the office and being like, a motherfucker just told me I could leave on a Wednesday, go home for the rest of the week, and decide on if I wanted to decide between two jobs or not. Yeah. I was like, fuck it, I'm leaving.
And you were like, now you know why I told you.
I was like, bro, I told myself,
wait for this call and say yes.
Bro, I said, I'm leaving, and I just went home, and I was like, bro, I'm about to take this other job. I was like, yo, I'm about to just go back. I was like, worst case scenario, this is exactly what I told myself.
Even after the call, you were like, this is not a real thing.
No, I was like, even if it is a real thing, to me, I was like, they could just be trying to be nice. Like, low key, I was like, at this point, it was only one other black person. Yeah. And I had not seen Serafina. So I had not known that this girl, the other intern, was black. So as far as I was concerned, I was like, there's only one other black person here and one other, like, person who's not black. Awana.
And D-Light.
So, D-Light and Awana. We're like the only non-black people there. So to
Will
me...
Bond.
Well, he doesn't, so in my mind, I was just like, yeah, they're not hiring.
He's cool.
I was like, they're not going to hire me.
He talks to people. He's
he'll have, if he meets you, he'll debate you. Yeah, he's mad dope. I was like, they're not going to hire me. So I was just like, and I was thinking, like, even if they do, they might just be doing this because, like, you know, diversity. Like dude, at the time, I was thinking all this shit. So I was like, maybe I'm so.
If you're in an office where you're like one of the only black people, that's
I was thinking to myself, like, maybe this is why. But then I was like, this could be good too. So that's another reason why I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And then I found out Serafina was black. I was like, oh, this is actually really great.
You found out Serafina was black, was like, you got the test results back or something.
I mean, I was just like, it was just good to know that, like, oh yeah, like I wasn't about to, and then she was about to work there too. So it was like, oh yeah, we're here. Like this is a thing that was going on. It wasn't like some like, oh, we feel bad for you because you're black. Like no, y'all were actually good. Like everyone kept saying, oh yeah, these interns are so good. Like everyone, I was like, are we really that good? Or like, did your intern suck before? I was like, I don't know. Maybe they're lying. But everyone kept saying it, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, she's good," and like she's cool. And I was like, "Oh, she does good work too." Like I was actually genuinely like, I would come in because we had like on and off schedule, so I would come in on a Monday, and I'd be like, "Oh, she wrote good questions on Friday."
Me and Serafina are writing an animated movie currently together. She got all the juice.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, I should legitimately be like, "Oh, these were like." Damn, like I was like, my questions need to be good this week because her questions were good last week. So like that's how I used to think it with her. So then I got the plug. We get the job. Boom, boom, boom. We're doing this for a little bit, and I was like, bro, I'm not doing anything here. And then one day it felt like it switched, and then I was like, oh yeah, you do interviews now. I was like, huh? I was like, I do interviews now for highly questionable. Yeah, that's dope. I was like, that's hard. That's hard.
My philosophy is always like, you only learn by doing shit. So I remember when you're an intern, I was like, yo, I know you're smart as shit, but I know like there's nothing to do because everyone has all the responsibilities. So I was like, the only way you're gonna learn this shit is just do it. And also I wanted to make sure like people knew you were nice at it. Because I knew you were, but if you didn't get the chance to actually do it, then you never get to shine. You know what I mean?
I think one time, and you was getting real comfortable with like you was about to do your NY shit. So all right, so maybe this is what happened. So you started really off. You're like, yo, I'm leaving early to go to NY.
Well, the thing is that once we had that Jesus Romero meeting, I was like, yo, my life's about to fucking change. I was like, I'm not a broke boy anymore. Like, I'm really, you know what I mean? That's my thought process.
So
like,
let me tell you what happened. So I had met Jesus.
I love the energy.
I had met Jesus at what's that fucking the Roots picnic like one summer the year before I had before I started working and because I had seen him on Twitter and he was with these two white girls. Or of a white girl and a black girl. And I was just like, I had a, bro, I dead ass remember. I went up to him and I was like, bro. I was like, bro, nah. I was like, I was like, I gotta dap you up, bro. I was like, bro, you a real one. He was like,
yo, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he looked at me mad weird. He was like,
do you think he remembered that shit?
Probably not. He was just
it's
like,
hard.
he was like some random he was like some random cuz from Twitter knows me and is coming up to me. And then at this time, this is like, he's not that big, so he's probably like.
But also, when you're not that big, if someone like fucks with your work, it means more.
Yeah, but I was just like, yo, I know you from Twitter. Like, I didn't even follow him, but I dead ass knew him from Twitter.
He was probably gassed.
So
he's probably hit it, but he was gassed.
I remember seeing him, and I remember being like, oh, this dude. So I'm like da. And I had heard about the Bodega Boys podcast, but I was just like,
bro. That shit, that shit was the funniest shit I'd ever fucking heard.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I was like, yo, these are the people I went to high school with, but they're the funniest motherfuckers I went to high school with.
But that's the thing. So I remember telling these niggas about it. I was like, y'all listen to this? And niggas was like, no. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, maybe it's some New York shit, because that's what we was on. We was like, oh, it's just some New York shit. So I had listened, but I tried to listen.
But New York sets the trends, though. You know how that works. That's just the truth. I'm just saying. I'm just observing.
That's my point. But I had listened to a few episodes. I was just like, no, this is not for me. Like, it's some niggas from New York.
This is the thing, though. This is the thing about content production, bros. It's like, it's not just there's content cultivation, which is like what we're doing now. Yeah. We're cultivating content, trying to make some shit that makes people think, make people laugh, but then it's how you present the content, right? Yes. So with Jesus and Miro, my thought always was like, yo, I'll listen to an hour-and-a-half podcast talking about like comparing baby dicks at a Dominican wedding shower or whatever, baby shower, like where you're just like, what are you talking about? Cracking up. But most people won't listen to an hour and a half, right? Mm-hmm. So in my mind, it was always like, all right, how do we package this in a way where you don't lose the soul, where you actually like, I always think of it like crack, right? Like you cook it down and it's, and like it gets more intense or whatever. And so I was like, you edit it down and you just take the best shit and suddenly you have a product that is like nonstop funny because you've only left in the amazing shit, And I think that's the real cheat code always in content. And I talk to Chuck, I always think like this shit, you edit this shit to like 30 minutes, bro, and you just lead into all the best shit, it would be a fire ride. You know what I mean? But like in a podcast, you leave the wandering, which is dope for some listeners, but hard for new people sometimes. Because they're like, I don't know you. Why am I gonna wander with you? So.
No. So like I said, I had known about it calls me in his office and is like, have you heard of this? I'm like, yeah.
Just keep slipping up.
Oh, fuck. Well, the Oracle calls me into his office and he's like, yo, do you? I'm like, yeah, like, doesn't everybody know about Jesus? Like,
he loved them, bro. He put me on, actually. The first person who told me about them, he was like, yo, you ever heard this podcast? I was like, no. And I heard it and I was like, yo, this is incredible. And I watched, they had an old YouTube show.
Yeah, on
Complex.
Was it Complex? Or was it Complex at the time?
A dude named Donnie Quack who produced it. Donnie Quack was like a genius. And he was great with them and they were amazing. And it was so raw, bro. Like if you go back and watch those, problematic. Like to the 1000th degree. Like you think saying pause is bad. My God.
But that's the whole point. Like they were leading into it. They're from a different era where wasn't problematic.
But they had nothing, bro. Like that's the thing. Like it's the thing about creativity. Like when you have nothing to lose, you come up with better shit.
That's right.
You gonna pass that around here?
Nonetheless, he had called me in his office and was like, I'm like, yeah, has it everybody? He's like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, yeah, they're dope.
I didn't tell you about it first?
Well, you said he's gonna ask you about this.
I knew you had the juice.
You were like, he's gonna ask
the juice with me.
You were like, he's gonna ask you about this show and just tell him your honest to God truth. I was like,
so you see the strategy.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, do this. I was like, and he was like, what do you think about like these cuts and breaks? I was like, have you seen the Wayans brother? I was like, just watch the Wayans brother. I was like, you know how they do like the cuts and that? Like that's some shit that I would. He was like, oh, I'm good. He's like, send me clips. I was like, all right. I sent him like 2 or 3 YouTube. clips of the Wayans brothers of the breaks I was talking about. He was like, all right, I see what you're talking about. Lo and behold, they was like, yo, can y'all go to NY? I was like, really? I was like, hold on, really? They're like, yeah, you're about to move there. And
that's when I knew Chuck was on his way up, like the Jeffersons, goddammit.
I was like, huh? They was like, yeah.
That whole ride was the craziest shit.
I was
all
like,
of us.
and that's what I'm saying.
Bro,
It went from like,
we started going to Art Basel and like,
bro, that's what I'm saying. We literally went from talking about it in the office
bro,
to like literally 6 weeks later, like, yo, do you think you could? And I'm like,
bro, we smoked Chuck would roll 2 blunts before every episode of Diaz and Miro. We smoked for like, 30 minutes? Shoot the shit, film the show, high as fuck, bro. Like, it was fire. Like, it was just, there was a moment in time where, like,
we got our, we caught our groove, I'd say, like, 4 months in.
Yeah.
Like,
because I used to watch the show.
The first couple months, we were trying to.
That's the only shit I ever did when people watched it, and I knew it wasn't just because they were, like, my friend.
Yeah.
You know?
We at the first couple months, we were kind of trying to establish, like, what we wanted to be about. Like, did we want to do it like this? Did we want to do it like that? And I also think they just need to get comfortable being the lead men. Like,
and the thing is, that thing about them is, like, they're an improv act.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People don't realize how genius they are. They don't write any of their shit.
This is like off the top.
So you gotta know how to produce for improv.
Yeah.
You don't write for them. You write situations. You come up with ideas that they will like. You know, you predict what
you
they're
have to
gonna fuck
prod.
with. Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
You have
especially with guys like Miro, because it's just like you just never know.
That's the whole point, and you like that because that's where magic happens.
Just come off the top rope with some wild,
like not knowing brings out the best.
And do some wild shit.
Not knowing brings out the best.
Light a fucking platano. You know what I mean? You remember when he bit the platano?
Bro,
I went to the bodega that day. I'm getting this dude platanos.
And that's
I was
the
like,
thing.
I don't know, it's Dominican Independence Day, and that's it. You just give him some shit for him to play with, you know.
And you also have to lean into
genius,
who people are. Like, they are eccentric people. Like, they like to be eccentric in what they are. Like, the things they like, the things they hate, the things they don't care about. So, like, you have to lean into that. And
it's a really well-rolled joint.
Shout out to the cameraman. And I think that's what all that experience was about. So let's talk about our last professional working experience. We left the Deezus and Miro.
Left Deezus and Miro. Well, as the Oracle says, TV is a here today, gone tomorrow business.
For sure.
And that motherfucker said that to me every day I worked for him, and I never really got it until it was gone. And you're like, damn, that shit is gone. You know, like, and it was hard, bro. Like, Deezus and Miro, like, I never talked. I mean, that was our heart. Like, that was our shit.
Well, you know what the thing that bothered me about that, the way it ended personally, was that we got to a point, like I said, we hit our groove.
And the thing about Deezus and Miro is, like, yo, we left. That was the weirdest part.
That's the thing. Like, we hit our groove.
We went and started a new show.
And then we left. You know what I'm saying? It's not like somebody was like, you guys are bad, stop. It was like,
It's because human
politics,
human relationships are everything, and like I realized,
politics,
no, but it's politics, but it's also like I was 26 when Deezus and Miro started, and like yo, like me, you, and Peach and Cortez, that was the whole power structure of that show. Everything that went in that show was just running by us four, and like
trying to fight against the executives of a network.
The executives would be like, you can't include that, you can't include this. But in terms of what, like, who's gonna write this show every day, literally,
but that's my
just
thing.
Us.
But think about it. But think about that power dynamic. It's us versus the network versus host.
Yeah, it was.
So it wasn't like.
But the reason it was versus host, and I'll say, because I was young, I didn't know how to build relationships, man. Like that is everything.
But
in
that
life,
was my thing. My thing was that we were.
You were better at that. Like that's one thing I always admired about you. You could build relationships with anybody.
Yeah, but my thing about it is that you knew the politics of it. That's my whole thing. Like I didn't understand at that time. I didn't understand.
I knew when that shit was going south.
You know what I'm saying? I used to be like, oh, we're just having fun making TV, not understanding all the layers.
It's tough, yeah.
And then I think it was Deezus and Miro that made me realize, oh no, it's not about just making good TV. Yeah. It's about all that and the relationships. Yeah. So like you said, you can have the relationships or you can have the politics.
So I'll tell you, I disagree. I think it's because the relationships weren't good enough. I think the quality of for example, like you are someone I've worked with for years now. Mm-hmm. Like when me and Chuck are starting a little wine brand now. Infused wine. There's a slight flex. And anyway, I'll be back on to promote that shit. We drink that shit. It's lit. It's ancient Egyptian wine. It's an ancient Egyptian recipe. Anyway, but when I started working with Chuck, and I was like, I trust you, I know you. We have a relationship. We've been through mad shit together. You know, like, I did fucking shrooms with this motherfucker at my job.
You're a real friend.
That's real shit. I have very few people I've done that with. I mean, just those four. Anyway, so I'm comfortable with him. I trust him. the thing is, like, at that job, we didn't have that level of trust, that level of personal relationship. And, like you guys work together, you're friends, and, like, it's good because of that. You know what I mean?
But what I would argue is that
I feel like I didn't build relationships enough. Like, that's the thing I blame myself. I knew we made good enough shit, but I was
Yes, but
I
that's
was
my
too
thing.
focused on the content and not
Yes.
focused enough on, like,
well, my thing is that you chose to make relationships with different people. So in a group, in a power dynamic which is split in thirds, you had decided I'm gonna make relationships with certain people, and then it ultimately bit us in the ass. But that's a different story for a
This
different
is me
day.
and Chuck having therapy right
I'm
now.
just saying because that really.
But it's therapy about something a little famous, so it's kind of interesting, right?
It really made me realize that, like, yo, this
It's
shit
the
is.
reason why they left Viceland. And
It's really realized, like, yo, there's politics to
and
all
people
this.
low-key wanted to know why.
Well, yeah,
It's
we
just
don't need to get
politics.
into all that.
It's just politics, and I think like that's.
I know it's a little bit just, you know what I'm saying, seeped out.
I just said it's politics. And
Little exclusive, not exclusive.
If you-
little exclusive.
no, I think that's one thing. Like they did Showtime because Showtime fits them better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Viceland,
Bro,
wasn't.
I'll tell you this. Viceland treated them like shit.
That's my point. Viceland.
like, Viceland-
What content does Viceland make now as far as TV?
Nah, but like they never, Viceland never paid them. Like I'm comfortable saying that shit, bro. Like those dudes should have got paid so much more. But they got that first contract they gave them. They were like, "Oh, we got you on a cheap deal. We'll keep you on a cheap deal."
But
and that's why they left. If Viceland
But
cut the check,
politics.
if
Is that not politics? Is that not wanting to invest and do
Loki
things?
is white supremacy because they cut the check for Action Bronson, bro. They cut that big check.
I was about to say that.
Call them out, buddy. I love this
Does Viceland even
messiness.
exist anymore?
That's my point.
I'm not worried about
do.
that.
You never know. You might need a
We might
call.
need that-
Can I say
we
his
might need
name?
that-
Can I say his name with the J?
Oh, say whatever the fuck you want with him.
Jeff might be able to get you a job later. You never know. So what, like you said, we move on to the next job. What was that like?
Chuck has the juice now. This is the thing about Chuck. It's like Chuck really has the juice now, and he's got the connections, and like this man is gonna be making like fucking all sorts of shit. The next 20 years, bro, you look back at what this guy's doing, you're gonna be like, yo, wow, shit.
Listen, I'm just trying to link with cool people and make dope shit with my homies.
But that's how the coolest shit happens. Do you know what I mean? Like people overthink it. They're like, oh, you got to be with this person, that person. You make something you love. That's the best way someone else can find a way to love it. I think. Like Dean Samir, it was always like, does that shit make us laugh? Does that make us laugh? If it doesn't make us laugh, it's not in the show. You can't sell something to someone that you're not buying yourself. Like that's disingenuous. I've always thought.
That's real shit. So I
Any
need
other messy shit you want to get into?
Authenticity, baby.
Well, the last job was. There's a really messy situation, so I'm not
I
gonna
don't
do
know how
that.
much it's worth, honestly.
All
I
right,
think
all right. That's a little too close to home. All right.
it's not. I just feel like it's like the law of diminishing returns. It's like, what is there to gain?
Respect.
That's all.
All right.
That'll be only my perspective.
Bars.
I respect that. So yeah, we're gonna leave that last one. So let's talk about the way we've been doing now, post working together. We don't work together professionally anymore. Well, in the
I'll tell you the way I think about it. I absolutely think we work together professionally.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely do.
Like I think you gotta shoot shots. That's always been my philosophy in life. And you gotta
Talk about Speech Club.
Speech Club, bro. Like so. I don't even know how exactly it
I don't
started.
attend anymore, but I still
All right,
watch
so
the
Speech
speeches.
Club started because after the George Floyd sort of uprisings
Smacked.
last summer,
It's great.
we were talking, in particular, me, Brad, and Rodney, were talking a lot about just like the state of like
Rodney,
the country.
Rodney, an associate of ours,
Shout out Rodney, big
brilliant young man.
great partner in the writing trio and creative team for sure.
That's it. We need a name.
And yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about it.
And he was like, the three of us were having a lot of conversations, Peach as well, just about the state of the country and the world. And we were like, yo, what would be a good way to kind of like flush this out, not via group chat? You know, like,
yeah, we would like send each other like what? We send each other speeches.
Yeah, we send each other articles.
Like Kwame Ture speeches, like shit that has like 20,000 views on YouTube, and we're like, how does no one see this?
Exactly.
You know?
So, and it was all sort of interrelated or connected to the times. So we were like, I think it was
Algorithms.
I think Brad was basically like, yo, let's start a Zoom. Like, let's get on Zoom. Because this is when Zoom parties were a thing. He was like, let's get on Zoom and let's kind of like talk this out. And we were like, all right, 4 or 5 of us, we started doing it. And it just kind of stuck because I
Should you
think.
say what it is, like speech club? If you don't know,
explain it.
Okay, I mean, to me, it was just a group of people getting together to talk about essentially social issues in the country, and of course, it was around the time of George Floyd's murder, and you know, the question of black liberation is certainly the focus of the speech club, I would say, if I had to give a term, and it's like doing the political education we never get in this country, right? Like, what do they teach us about politics in public schools in this country?
Nothing.
They don't teach us shit. Or they do teach us shit, but they teach us like
the structure of it.
Well, and they teach us such like, you know, this guy's a hero, that guy's a hero, and then you find out they were like people who did genocide. You're like, damn, you could be a hero and do genocide? It seems kind of tough to hold both of those titles.
It's America, you know. We praise war criminals.
Exactly. But anyway, so that's what the speech club was about. Was kind of like learning real American history, and it's been dope. Yeah.
And learn about real Americans.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. Different people come through. People take turns, kind of talking about things, addressing different issues that they think is important. Like one recently we had was someone talking about a Lil Nas X video and like homophobia in the black community.
The Montero video, right?
Yeah, what that means, what that says. So I think it's just about, like you said, kind of. I think she said, I think I could say her name, Shannon. She made an interesting point about having to do the work, like having to like go upon ourselves to learn things that we're not comfortable learning, or talk about things that we may not always talk about in our, everyday
and talking to people
lives.
we might not talk to every day.
And about things that we might not talk about every day. So I think that's what the speech club is about. Like just trying to really formulate active thinking of knowledge, like, and not trying to be smug about it.
But it's like sharing and promoting knowledge. Like we'll get together to get drunk or high, but we won't get together like talk about, I don't know, some shit like why people gotta be starving on the street. You know what I mean? But like that's a pretty important thing to talk about. So anyway, it's like a forum for us to learn and share and kind of grow as a community. I don't know. Yeah.
I enjoy the speech club because it's just like one way that we really like to see people's perspectives without it being combative.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Most people who do come and are open-minded about it, they can have different perspectives and not be combative. I think that's a really good way to put it.
You know what I'm saying? Like Twitter, of course, because like that's where people want to be think piecing and shit, and like even online and just in comment sections, it's just like people get real combative with certain shit. But it's just like in the speech club, it's just like, all right, everybody here is like to actually like to do the work. Like it's just like, okay, I may not even know about this. I watch a speech and it's just like, oh shit, that shit real life changed my whole perspective, or I knew about this, but I gained even more knowledge and wisdom from what was said. Not even from the speech, but from someone else.
The
in
community.
The group. Yeah.
Like having
community.
Like that's something that I feel like I like learned from like Black American culture that a lot of like white people didn't get to learn, is the value of like a more extended community. Seriously, like my white family doesn't give a fuck about me. You know what I mean? Like their family friends, they don't even know about me. Do you know what I mean? But like honestly, a lot of Black American families I've known are much tighter. Friend groups much tighter. Look out for each other. Like, yo, you guys have like a whole business together. Like I have friends that would never do that shit. Family that would never do some shit with me like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's my.
I told you I would ride for you, so you good on my book. You team me.
Here's the thing.
So
like,
you got me, but like you ready to take on the whites?
I guess like
them some powerful people, man.
That's what I'm saying.
They be conquering.
And
shit.
that's the thing. You don't have to. You could really just be white and chill. Like you ain't gotta do none of this. You ain't gotta worry about none of this shit.
One thing I'll say is I don't think I'm really I'm not doing much. Do you know what I mean? Like honestly, like I don't want to act like I'm doing some great. I'm really not. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's so much more I could be doing. Honestly, to be for real. And I try to find ways to do more in a way that doesn't like take over my whole life. But nah, man. Like honestly, like white people are mad boring. Like I don't know. Like that's I had lived with a white girl for 2 years who was from like a fancy family in Maryland. That was my dream. I was like, I just want to meet just like it was like a white princess. I didn't think of it that way. I wasn't like writing that down, but I realized now I was like, yo, I just wanted like a sorority queen kind of thing, you know? And I lived with her and I was like, yo, man, I hope she doesn't see this. She's a nice person, but I was just like, yo, this is boring.
You talking about me? That's what I'm saying. This is what you should be worried about.
I'm not worried about this.
This what you should.
Yo, if she's watching High Coast the podcast, then she became cool. You know what I mean? So like, then we're good. Like, she is not watching this shit, my friend. Like,
So
this is like back at these mirror, just high as fuck.
So she became cool.
Nah, she didn't become cool. That's why I'm not worried to see this shit. I know she didn't become
she
cool.
definitely listens,
Nah,
bro.
I look at her Facebook. She didn't become cool. Trust me, I'm good.
You looked at her Facebook.
Yeah, you look at people's Facebooks.
She listens.
Sometimes you look at people's Facebooks, you're like, what are they up to? How's their life been? Like old friends from high school and shit.
No, stay away.
You know, it's just information.
I dig it.
All right, so what were you asking me? How I take on white people? I don't really take. I talk shit to white people on like Twitter, but it's like I'm not out there with a gun at the Capitol fighting people against them. You know, like my idea is that I think culture changes through art. Like I read Malcolm X's book, changed my whole life. Do you know what I mean? Changed my whole life. I could never see the country the same. I saw an evil in this country that no matter what I did, it was always in the back of my mind that it never went away. And so to me, I hope to make art in some way. Like Jesus Samir, I was always so proud. Like, yo, we would call Donald Trump your white supremacist president in 2016. People were not really saying that, and they were bold enough to put their name on it. We wrote it, but they put their name on it, and like I've always been proud of that. Do you know what I mean? And like, if you can make art that makes people think a little bit, learn a little more, it's valuable. Do you know what I mean? Do you deserve to be like lauded and praised? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how valuable it is. Like, did it really change shit? Nope. You know, maybe some people got a little more aware, but like, you know. So yeah, I mean. But in general, like, white people are boring, so, like, I like to hang out, like, the truth is, white people in other countries are not as boring, like, honestly, like, white people in other countries sometimes are, like, mad interesting, but, like, American whiteness is, like, yeah, I didn't even hit that shit, I was just, this is what Mira used to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Holding the blunt too long, and it's like, yo, can you fucking pull that shit and pass that shit?
Gotcha.
I didn't think you lit it all the way.
I'm professional.
And I took a pull and I was like, perfect. Like, not an ounce more was needed.
Not an ounce more is killing me.
I haven't smoked the L in a minute. It's a very different experience. A little more heat comes out, you know?
You know that vibe hit you in your chest.
Just like out of you, suddenly like the energy changes with the L, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Shit like brown liquor.
So now talk about your good white people across the pond. Not across the pond, but around the world.
I didn't say they're good white people. I said no. Yeah, I mean, all I mean is that like America's a weird ass place.
Okay.
It is a racial caste system. Now, frankly, a lot of countries have some element of that, but here it is. The history of it,
very defined.
History of it, the structure of it is very defined, and very little has changed. Do you know what I mean? Like the methods have changed, the names have changed. Like it's redlining now. It's, you know, it's like,
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so like to me, like in other places,
Oh, pass that to her.
but that's why I like New York, because New York you can find your people. Like yo, where I live in New York, I'm chilling. Like I love it. Like I live in a neighborhood that people be like, oh, it's a diverse neighborhood. It's just actually diverse. It's like Indian people, Mexican people, Dominican people, anybody's there, you know? And so for me, I love it, you know? Shout out, Manhattan Valley is the name of the neighborhood. It's not very famous, but, you know, we get down there.
We get down there.
Come to Columbus, Amsterdam Avenue, 107, 108th Street on the weekend. Yo, Poppy will be blasting bachata. Like, yo, you'll have everyone smoking L's in the corner. It's like, it's comfy. It's an environment. It's people play basketball.
It's a
kids in
vibe.
the playgrounds. It's a community.
It's a vibe.
It's mad nice. Like I'm never leaving that fucking place, unless I get a crib in like Colombia for the winter.
Yes.
You know the vibes.
So, the last thing I want to get you out on here is your travel. You are a very well-traveled man, I would consider. Sure. A few places I can remember you being to off the top: Colombia, Israel.
Israel's a very interesting one because I was too young to understand. We'll
dig maybe a little bit deeper later, but you've been to where?
I would love to talk about this with you.
Where else have you been in South America?
I have this shirt on for a reason.
Give me the South American countries. Have you been to Europe?
I've been to. I mean,
it was Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, low-key, I didn't have a great time there because I didn't really know how to travel.
And what was the other country?
Been to France, been to Spain. I've been around a little bit. Been to Russia. No, been to Ukraine. Italy. Did a month in Italy. That was pretty lit.
What was Ukraine like?
Ukraine was starving. Like that place was like Ukraine was like. I went to a market in Ukraine, like an open air market, and it was like some of the wildest shit I've ever seen. Just like people digging through piles of vegetables. But like not the same vegetable, just like random vegetables. Just like mad old ladies just trying to pick out a fucking carrot they liked. And I was just like, this is so unsanitary. This is before COVID, obviously. The open air markets, it's not a great thing. Anyway, but Ukraine was cool. People are mad poor there. It's like Paul Robes talks about. You goes around Europe and you see like most people are poor everywhere.
Have you ever been to Asia? Yes, you
Yeah, I've been to Japan. Japan was lit. I fuck with Japan. Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Well, I had one of the craziest times of my life in Japan because I had.
We don't have to
go into that necessarily, but that is. I mean, it's hard to separate it. You know, like.
Well, can you dive in and without being? Let's see how good of a storyteller you are. Dive in without diving in.
Diving without diving?
Yeah.
You know.
So you were in Japan with a
I was in
person.
Japan with a kind of girlfriend, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like thoroughly defined, you know, but she lived in New York. I don't know.
I was dating.
Dating a little bit, you know. She was the one who brought the shrooms.
Hey.
The Brazilian.
It's cool. She taught me a lot about life.
So yeah, the Brazilian.
And y'all had a situation.
Bro, we had a situation, bro. I can't even tell you.
Y'all had an
crazy.
emergency.
Yo, I've never.
which-
That's the crazy day of my life. Is not close. Not close. Not even close. I did shrooms at work. That was like the 50th crazy day. I literally.
What's it like going through an emergency in a foreign country?
No, for real.
It's one thing. Let me hit this first.
For one, a language barrier is enough for me. And you in Japan, my nigga. That sounds nothing like what you talking about.
Yeah, it was crazy, bro. Like, she had like some kind of it was a wild situation that basically she lost her mind in some fashion. I don't know if she took some drugs or if she's had like a mental issue, and basically like she was delirious and couldn't remember where she was, couldn't remember what she was doing, and was like OD freaking out, screaming everywhere. And she lost her mind. Like that's the best way to put it. Like I went to get something, I came back and she was like drugged up, and then I had to take her to the hospital in Japan, and like I didn't speak any Japanese, and people do not speak English there, like really. I thought there was a lot more English. And so yeah, like I literally was like in the Tokyo emergency room for like 5 hours, and she was like waking up and going back to sleep, forgetting everything that had happened. And she like forgot she was in Japan every time. And I'd be like, "You're in Japan, calm down." That shit was wild, but not a well told story there. You can cut that out.
No, we keeping all
Let's
this shit.
definitely keep it that.
You keep it if you want it.
South-
I say cut it out because it might be boring.
You went to Japan and a girl lost her mind on the trip.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
For sure.
South America, where have you been outside of Colombia? You've had some good experiences, but outside of there, where
I went to
have you
Argentina, Buenos Aires, and I went to this place called Iguazu Falls, which is like the Niagara Falls of South America, and like that shit was incredible. Like one night, I went like after dark. You're not supposed to go in the falls after dark, but you know, fuck it, I'm from New York. Like I was only there one night and it was closed. I was like, I'm going in. So I went in, and then
Colonized activity,
so me and
bro.
my-
I'm not gonna lie to you.
my ex girl were there.
One of your exes.
My exes. That's how
Yeah,
life
Jones,
goes.
right?
I just like taking trips with people, you know,
Okay.
and you know, it is what it is.
You like Hispanic Jones, or you like what's your type?
Listen, I'm not.
Finish telling your story. We can get to your woman type later.
My bad. I was trying to get a little messy right quick.
You saved
China.
it.
Got you messy right
That
quick.
was the assist right there.
This nigga Charles,
Charles looks out.
motherfucking
why-
life jacket.
Well played too, because I could have got messy. But yeah, no, yo, and we got a randomly. Long story short, basically, we got in trouble for being in the jungle after dark, and I didn't speak Spanish back then. I've learned it now, and so basically, they were like mad at us, and they were like took our passports. They were like, "Yo, you're in trouble." I'm like, I had not been in many countries. I was like, they took our passports, and suddenly I was freaked out, and then we sort of became friends with them. And then these two park rangers went from taking our passports to like being like, "Yo, you guys want to hang out tonight?" But I didn't speak Spanish, so they were like asking us shit in Spanish, and I was just like, "See," because I was like, they seem happy, so let's roll with it. And they took us in their van to the jungle in the middle of the night, and we walked through the jungle with the two park rangers, me and my girl, and they took us to the top of the waterfalls in pitch black with no one, and they were like taking out weed and taking out like the shit they drink called mate, which is like kind of like coffee. I don't know, it's tea. They love that shit. And it was just the dopest shit. And like they didn't have to do that. Like they were just being mad cool. So That's what I believe. I believe in the kindness of people, bro. Like, I really do. Like, that's some real shit. You just got to figure out how the fuck to get to that kind core, and it's mad hard with some people.
Where domestically, because we
I don't really fuck with America that much, to be honest.
God damn, white boy, have some respect. Who's America?
I think it's boring, and it's like hegemony. Do you know what I mean? Like, every city's the fucking same. Like, everyone just copies New York.
Oh my God, people.
But no, like, listen, I'm sure there's great shit in Chicago, but like, I want to experience different cultures. Going to Chicago is kind of different culture, but it's still like American culture. So for me, I don't know how many times I'll be able to go places. I want to go somewhere new. Like, I know we talked about doing something in West Africa, like hitting Accra, like Dakar. Like, I would love to do that shit. North Africa. Like, I know I've talked to you about.
I'm going to Morocco.
Yo, I desperately want to go to Morocco. Like, to me, it's just the more you experience different cultures, the more you learn about different perspectives on life. And like, cause at the end of the day, like you know the Lauryn Hill Unplugged album. You know this? I love that shit. Some people say it's crazy. It's genius to me. She said one thing I always remember. She said, we're all in the same boat, dealing with the same problems. In terms of like existential life, right? We all live and die. That's the core thing that we all struggle with at the end of the day. And every culture has a different interpretation of it. And we all sit up at night kind of scared, like, damn, what's going to happen? Or whatever, or, you know, I'm going to die. And when you go to different places, I think you learn shit about life. And I don't know. I fuck with it. Trying to go as many places as I can before I die. Or I run out of money. Which way? We check. My man knows how to get money.
My last thing about travel.
He's a fact. Yeah, you gotta know how to get the money.
My last thing about travel. You talked about being in Israel when you were too young to understand. And unpack that for me.
Let's unpack it.
Birthright
Yeah,
trip.
birthright trip. So when I was 20, damn, I don't even know, young 20s. I don't know the exact age. I could look it up. I just can't remember the exact year. It was like, I always knew, like, if you were Jewish, you can go to Israel for free. I had not had a thorough political education. In fact, I had American political education largely, you know? So I didn't really understand that Israel was a full-on apartheid state. Truly, you know? Which it clearly is. Israel is an apartheid state, said a Jew.
Just know, I want you to know you got a call from the back off of that one. When you said that someone had a, just like you know.
A call from the back?
A cough from the back.
Oh, yeah. True.
Just know they bugged the line. Someone heard you. They were
Let me listen. Like, sometimes you gotta tell the truth. Anyway, so I was like, free trip to Israel. I was like, free trip. Like, I told you how hype I was when I got $40,000 as my salary. Like, free trip. Like, I'm definitely a cheap Jew. Like, I definitely got that part of it. And I was like, free trip.
I do not endorse any of these stereotypes.
I can say these things. So anyway, I was like, let's do it. So I went with my best friend, and he's half Jewish like me, but it's funny, like, his fiance is Dominican, right? So like he's like me, like he's gotten it. He's gotten it that white American shit is like wrong and needs to change, and he wants to be part of that change rather than just sitting in it. So we went to Israel together with the white hegemony, of course, you know, and we were just having a free trip, get drunk, like, kind of party type shit, like, get free. Everything was free. Like, they just took you around and they just fucking lavish you with pro-Israeli propaganda, right? And they don't tell you anything about all the endless human rights abuses that are going on over this fucking barbed wire fence that you drive by, where there is a country jailed in. You know, like, you know, I know the shirt. Where's the shirt from?
It's actually made, I don't know, it might be made in Palestine, but I know it was shipped from Richmond, Texas.
Okay, so it's Palestine. Pro-Palestine. But yeah, so when I say I was too young, I didn't realize that trip was just paid for basically by this dude in Las Vegas, Sheldon Adelstein, who's like one of the most evil motherfuckers of all time, who is an ultimate billionaire. I think he died. Did he die?
I'm not sure.
The estate,
He'll probably die
it's
soon,
all
though.
him.
Like,
remember, it's all
but some
the white guy.
Some evil guys like that live forever. You know, he's one of those old evil guys that has like $80 billion, the most racist, fucked up teeth,
Sheldon.
living forever.
Racist teeth is a real thing. I don't know if you have racist teeth. I haven't seen a picture of you.
Let's look it up. Let's look it up.
Hold on, let me see a picture of
Let's see. We gotta show the
Sheldon. If you have racist, we'll put them up in the post.
Yeah.
If you have racist teeth, I'm sorry. That's not my.
But this is an example of a guy who. This is an example.
He died this is him. Yeah, he died.
So this is
in
an example of a
2000.
guy who's Jewish and a white supremacist, which is something that is a nuance that people miss in this country. Not every Jew is a white supremacist, but being Jewish does not mean you are not.
Yes,
Don't they
you
call them-
can be.
Don't they call them Zionists?
Because you are a Jew does not make you.
Because in the white community, Jews are like the weird whites, but they still get to be in the white umbrella. You know, that's the shit. So like when a Jewish person wants to be like, oh, I'm discriminated against, it's like, shut the fuck up. Like you get to walk in anywhere and be a white boy, always. And that's the color line in this country. It's not a religion line, it's a color line.
All we're saying, just want to be very clear
gotta get back to Israel.
with my people. We're not saying that all Jews are white supremacists.
Racist face though.
Yeah, racist patches for sure.
Definitely racist skincare.
Yeah, for sure. Not all Jews are white supremacists, but white supremacists can be Jewish. That's all he's saying.
That's all I'm saying.
He was definitely at the APAC convention.
So that guy pays for the Israel trip. And so the reason you get to go for free is this dude who's like part of this evil white supremacy establishment in this country. He like funds Donald Trump. He funds all these motherfuckers. And he funds the Israel trip because you go there and they basically try to convince you that Israel's great. Right? When in fact, this shit is like Jim Crow, basically.
For sure.
Like, and they just do lynchings with tanks and bombs. And so when I was there, I just enjoyed it. And I was like, damn, like, there's something happening here that I was like, I just don't fully get. Like, when I grew up, it was like, oh, there's like a war. I was like, oh, it's a war. It's not a war. It's like it's like saying Jim Crow was a war between white people and black people in this country. You know, it's just a misunderstanding of how it actually happened to call what's happening in Palestine and Israel a war. Anyway, so yeah, that's how.
Nah, I was going to stop, but now we gotta keep going.
No, let's go. This is a good thing. To
As
talk
a
about.
person who
And the fucking J's keep coming, bro. Like,
oh, they're not
let's get it.
stopping. From the Jewish lineage,
I am very proud of my Jewish lineage, though. I'll tell you that. Like
No,
my Jewish ancestors, the life they lived in Russia, bro, was very similar to what black people lived in here during like Jim Crow. Like the pogroms in Russia, they would just go through and murder Jews in the streets in the 1890s. And in my mind, I'm like, yo, so if you're a white Jewish person here and you know that shit, how do you not empathize with the story of this country that you're part of? You know what I mean? In my mind, but it's because they're white, and white supremacy is tempting, and it sucks people in.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I was going to ask, how do you maybe, once you see that, try maybe not even to combat that, but force other people to say, hey, like you said, we're Jewish. We come from a lineage of people who have gone through these same sort of things. Why can't you understand in this country where you kind of are fitting in?
Well, I think there's two things to teach people that's important. One, I think you need to teach the real history of this country. Like, people don't understand how horrifically violent just the last 50 years of this country is, you know? Nonetheless, last 100 years, you know? And when you learn that, because people be like, I think there's this weird thing where, like, white people find out racism exists every 5 years or every 10 years. You know, they're like, wow, there's racism here still? And, you know, it's just this delusion that white culture tries to create because then you don't have to change anything. So I think teaching the history is really important. You know, like changing the history that's taught in schools is important. I don't think the only way we should learn about George Washington is learn about how he was a perpetrator of genocide and should be a shame of our country. Like, George Washington should be the example of what you should never be in this country. And it shouldn't be a complicated legacy. It should be very uncomplicated, right? Hitler does not have a complicated legacy in this country, right? Hitler's the guy that we're like, he's the bad one, right? When George Washington needed a tooth, that motherfucker put a human on the ground and ripped a tooth out of their mouth with pliers. No pain, no Novocaine, nothing. And just was like, yeah, it looks like a good tooth. And that was a human that he imprisoned, that he probably raped their family members and imprisoned them for generations. You know what I mean? Like, that is just monstrous. And like, we don't talk about slavery enough in this country. Like, I think, honestly, I think this country just needs to have truth-telling in a way that...
Like actual slavery, not the Hollywood depiction of slavery.
Yeah, like, I think there should be just, like, I think, to me, all the founding fathers gotta go, like, low-key, like, and we just talk about Jim Crow lynching, like FDR, right? People talk about FDR, like the New Deal. That motherfucker, lynching was going on all over this country when FDR was president. He was like, we gotta fight the Nazis. It's like, motherfucker, the Nazis are in upstate New York.
For sure.
Like,
Niggas are in Alabama.
they wear hoods.
They're in Alabama.
You know what I mean? Like, and they're in your backyard, and you were the governor of New York. He didn't give a fuck.
At all.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's the conversation we have to have is that, like, that's this culture. It's not one of the racist places in the world. It's pretty much the most racist place in the world. Like, people didn't understand what chattel slavery was. It wasn't Greek slavery, you know, it wasn't Roman slavery. So I don't know. That's my perspective. That's why I think for us, like, I love thinking about how can we entertain people and teach them at the same time. Like, as the plug would say, he would say, enlighten and entertain. That's like this nexus that if you can hit that, you're doing something good and people enjoy it. So it's like double win. I don't know. Still smacked. What do you think about Israel?
For one, I don't call it that.
That's a good, I would say, I'm with you on that.
I call it the occupying state of Israel. It's called Palestine, in my mind, will always be, because that's what it was called up until 30, 40 or something like that. So it's just like, I don't really got time for Israel. It's America's little brother for real. You know what I'm saying?
It's America's military base in the Middle East. Like, I feel like that's why it's always been funded and protected so well.
Sure. You know what I'm saying?
And I guess business hub too, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, because it's like they sell technology, build technology, make technology, all that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Close to Asia, China, all that. You know what I'm saying? All that wild shit. But at the same, so it's just like, I don't really, like, if low key, if you honestly paying attention to what's going on in Israel right now, they're in turmoil because it's just like they don't really have a prime minister right now. Like their election keeps coming up in draws, even though both people are evil as fuck and they're both, neither one should be able to run for any political office because they're all war criminals. So it's just like, you know what I'm saying?
I think Israel is governed by the same basic principles as the United States.
Oh yeah,
which is white supremacy. It's just
but it's just like it's way more, it's way deeper though, because like they. Like the Zionist regime is just like, nah, like fuck y'all, like, and then like they're very blatant with it. Like in America, they try to water it down, it's coded language, shit like that. Over there, when you actually like listen to what they say and then like read the transcripts and like their agendas and what they're talking about, like it's dead as dehumanizing.
Yep.
Because like it's no way you talking about Israel is like leading the world in vaccine shots and shit like that, but you got a whole country in Palestine where people are not, well, on the other side in the West Bank and these other camps and shit that you got, that you have built cages around these people and taking their homes, destroying their homes, bombing them, and then rebuilding just so you can have vacation homes and shit like that for wealthy Europeans and Americans.
Well, there's two things about Israel that bother me the most. Like I would say, and I agree with like everything you said. The one thing I would say bothers me so much is when people say you're anti-Semitic to say something bad about Israel. Yeah, it is the most ridiculous fucking thing.
That's not true.
And then the other piece is to call people Israeli as like a nationality.
Yeah, you're not from there.
Like my family is Russian Jews. Yeah. Most of the people in Israel are Russian Jews.
For sure.
You know, so like you're still a Russian Jew. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like you have your own history and it has its validity. But like you don't just get to move somewhere and be like make up a new thing where people already live.
Yeah, you're like you're Slavic or you're block, like it's okay.
Yeah.
Listen, man, just remember to attack this guy when you have
I'm ready.
all your inquiries about why they said all these things. As long as you have that energy.
Seth Rogen already cleared the way.
Yeah,
remember Seth Rogen was like Israel's war crimes. He's right.
What was that?
Free Palestine, man.
I'm nobody, so it's straight.
I'm definitely a free Palestine guy, so
for sure.
Those are my partners in there. Any last things? Do you want the people to contact you? Do you want people to?
Do I want people to contact me?
You know, people might see this and be like, "Yo, the white boy was spitting that real."
I don't really want people to contact me. I mean, like in what way?
Do you want them to follow you on Twitter, that type of shit?
I mean,
Instagram?
Not really, unless they're like my friend. Or they're like friends of a friend. I'm just like
he said, y'all not getting none of these gems.
No. Like if you know me, I like it. Like then like.
But I'm saying, all right.
I like to have it organically. Like I'm not trying to get social media clout.
No,
like,
I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you sat here, you came in here and talked some shit.
I can say it.
So somebody was like,
okay,
wow,
that's fair.
White homie was. I'm about to say white homie was out here spitting that real, bro.
Okay. I changed my answer. I changed it.
Shut up. You got feeling the white?
Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to sell right now.
Everybody was feeling it, but apparently.
White homie was spitting that real,
bro. Don't make Dr. Umar come here, bro.
No, it's not the fact that he said that. It's just the fact that how he worded it. Like, cause I felt you was spitting that real shit. But white homie was spitting that real. Charles, no, we are not going to word things like that.
That's what I'm saying. You got to edit the podcast, bro. I'll edit the first one free. It will sing. I'm dead ass about that.
We really can't do the white homie because I really felt like that's a great like. Never mind. Nonetheless, B Morgs.
B Morgs.
What's the?
I don't know. Let me look. I can't remember what it
Come
was.
on, damn.
It used to be like my full name, and I was like, that's kind of not a good idea. Cause I'll be tweeting some wild shit sometimes. B Morgs 27.
B Morgs 27. Follow the man.
Only on Twitter. Don't follow me on Instagram. That's just for my friends.
Follow him
Please
on
let me
Twitter.
live my life.
Not on the Instagram. That's where he
I
gets. That's where he gets it in. He does not need.
Whoa, I said get it. I said share with my friends. Why are you twisting? Get it in.
See,
what is this? What?
You gotta
You
embrace
think
it,
you,
bro.
you think you know somebody?
See,
You know what I mean?
I'm only
Bro,
trying to
like,
make. I'm only trying to make you guys stars.
Who called you? Who called you and said listen? Who called you and said listen when the oracle calls?
You did. You did. Where's the Betty Mitchell? You can't keep giving. I was gonna do something else, but never mind. One last thing we do. You gotta look into the camera.
Fuck. I remember I heard this and I was like, I don't have anything good to say.
Well, hey.
Okay, let me try to think. I don't even know what the
You
question.
got like 30 seconds. So
All right, let's think.
what you're gonna do is you're gonna look into that camera. There's nothing to do with me.
It's what they know about you, right?
Come on, relax. See, that's the problem. You're too jumpy. Very colonized behavior. Look into the camera. When asked,
That's the most shaming thing you could say to me. I'm just like, damn.
Exactly.
I don't want to be a colonizer.
Exactly. I know.
I want to be the other thing.
Exactly. I know.
It
Hurts the soul.
You gotta tell.
You gotta look into.
Yo, I don't know why we spoke like 6 joints today, bro.
Bro, you're gonna look into the camera and you're gonna tell the people, all the fans, both yours and ours.
Yo, can you overdose on weed?
No.
Okay.
Yours and ours across
I don't have
the
any
world.
fans.
One thing or something they need to know about you. Damn. Or you want them to know about you.
Yo, my heart's in a good place.
I like that.
You hear that?
That's like the simplest shit I can say.
His heart's in a good place.
That's all right.
Remember that, people. Heart's in a good place. Love to see it.